Hello, this is Justin Williams with the Wolfpacker Podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by co-host Matt Carter, and today we are going to reflect on NC State's disappointing 24-10 road loss to Mississippi State in Starkville Saturday night. I guess the best way to start this podcast would be to offer some reasons for optimism and reasons for concern moving forward after Saturday night, because look, we all know what the situation was going into this game. NC State goes down to Starkville to play a seemingly mediocre SEC team, was the favorite, and ends up simply being outplayed by a team that looked like, that night Mississippi State was certainly the better team. So we're going to get into those points, reasons for optimism, reasons for concern, because I think there are still several on both sides of the equation. But a quick reminder to the listeners and viewers at home, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. We're on the Apple Podcast app, Spotify, Google Play, everywhere you listen to podcasts. Plus, you can always watch us on our YouTube channel, where you should subscribe to our YouTube channel and give this video a thumbs up. We're very close to our 1,000 subscriber goal, so if you listen to us regularly, use YouTube. Don't use YouTube. Excuse me, that was a tongue twister. Please subscribe. Please subscribe either way. Yeah. Okay, Matt, do you want the honors, or do you want me to go ahead and start with a point? Because I'll give you the honors, Matt. I want to hear what the first thing coming out of your mouth is going to be. Is it going to be a reason for optimism, or is it going to be a reason for concern?
And my coffee mug here is a quarter full. That tells you my personality, right? It's not 3/4 empty. It's a quarter full.
Wow.
And a little less right now. So I'll point big picture. I predicted an 8-4 regular season. I think I went 5-3 in the ACC. That was my original prediction. I did change that to NC State to win this game. Originally, I had NC State losing this game. Unless you were counting on an undefeated regular season and improbable berth into the college football playoff, all the goals are still ahead of you. That's the big picture. And I watched last night in the ACC. I finished my column. I was going to write quick hits, and I saw on Twitter, Florida State better be careful. And I tuned in, and Florida State gives up a walk-off touchdown on this horrible, horrendous defense at the end of the game to Jacksonville State. And I see on the bottom of the ticker how Wyoming beat Northern Illinois, the same Northern Illinois team that went winless a year ago, but beat Georgia Tech in week 1. And I was like, well, Florida State looks so good against Notre Dame. What happened? Well, wait a second. Notre Dame almost got beat by Toledo this week. Maybe Notre Dame, and it goes back to what we talked about. It takes 3 or 4 weeks to kind of figure out college football. You think Notre Dame, top 10 team, right? Well, maybe they're not. Maybe that performance by Florida State wasn't indicative of anything for Florida State. It might have been more indicative for Notre Dame. A long, rambling way of saying that look at the schedule. There's a key development at Boston College. We have to see quarterback Phil Djokovic left the game, had x-rays on his wrist and hand. So we have to see what happened there. Syracuse looked very offensively challenged again in a loss to Rutgers. Louisville looked awful against Ole Miss, who's a pretty good team, but they still looked awful against Ole Miss. That game's in Raleigh. Obviously, Florida State is not back. North Carolina, they did what they did against Georgia State, but we saw what they looked like against Virginia Tech, and they still struggled to run the ball, it looked like, at times against Georgia State. So, there's still a lot left for NC State. I'm not going to sugarcoat what happened Saturday night, because there's nothing to sugarcoat. They got beat. It was disappointing. It didn't look like they were well prepared. It didn't look like they had a great plan. It didn't look like they executed the plan they did have, particularly on offense and all of that. There's a lot of concerns that need to be addressed on the field. coming out of that game, but yeah, there were also missed opportunities, a lot of them, that could have changed the complexion of that game.
That was my
And
lead
makes
in
you
the
feel that,
notebook. Missed
yeah, that makes you,
opportunities.
yeah, you missed a lot. I mean, we can run through them, but there was a lot. And so, yeah, it's not like Mississippi State was clearly better last night. Don't get
Hmm.
me wrong. I'm not trying to say, oh, few things, but the point is, it's not like the gap was insurmountable. And if you look at the ACC, I forget Miami. Look, they won a dogfight with Appalachian State. Good. I mean, Appalachian State pretty good. Don't get me wrong, but they were still in a dogfight. So, uh, all things being said, I'm not feeling any differently about my season predictions of game by game that I put on the website that you can find today than I did going into last night. So that's the positive. Everything's still in front of NC State to have a very good year. And yeah, it's because the ACC stinks. Sure, I get that. But
Is
that
it
doesn't
the
mean you can't take advantage of that.
is it the worst Power Five conference this year? It looks like it.
I mean, you look at it, Oregon certainly made a strong case for the Pac-12. Although Washington stinks, so I mean, kind of a yin and yang with the Pac-12. I don't know. I think we'll just take a few weeks to figure out. I
Yeah.
think it just takes a few weeks to figure out, and
I think the ACC
but
really
it
needs to
makes
start
a
playing
strong
each other.
case. What's that?
ACC really needs to start playing each other just to get some wins on the table here. Although the ACC did not perform as badly in non-conference play in Week 2 as it did in Week 1. Matt, it's so funny. You zig whenever NC State fans zag and vice versa, man. When Wolfpack fans want to be on their high horse and talk about how awesome State looked against USF 45-0 shutout win, your response was, well, the Bulls sucked. So, I'm not taking too much out of it. And honestly, that was the correct take. And now you're saying don't get too concerned. And you know what? It's really hard to feel that way right now after the way, basically everything that could have gone wrong did in the first half. It wasn't that type of game where it was never a blowout. It never felt like the lead was insurmountable, but it never felt like NC State beyond the first quarter was really back in the game. You know what I mean? It could have happened, but it was like, I don't see NC State coming back from this. Even if they're down 10, it's just like they weren't able to move the ball on offense beyond the first quarter. But anyways, let me get to my first reason, and I'm going to give you, if you couldn't tell already, I'm going to give you a reason for concern. And my reason for concern...
Justin coffee mug is half. What is it? Well, you just started drinking it, so is it a quarter empty or...
Oh, I mean, I've been chugging this thing. This is my first cup of coffee. We're recording this, in the 7 hour here Pacific time. As soon as I get off this podcast, I gotta go be looking at my Sunday ticket. Make sure that my Sunday bets are right because the Wolfpack laid an egg for me last night. I'm never taking NC State again. I think I've said this probably 10 times. And every time I get suckered into betting on NC State, when they win, it doesn't feel any different. And when they lose and you bet on them, it's just an absolute gut-wrenching feeling. So I'm done with it. I'm done. And I'll probably be
until
back
next
on
week.
Until they play Clemson and Clemson gets 23 points. Okay, my reason for concern is that the defense simply did not look the same when Peyton Wilson was not on the field. And he left in the second quarter. And before he left the game, NC State's defense looked awesome against Mississippi State's, great offense. It's a great offensive system. Dave Doran said it going into this game. You know what they're going to do. It's just a matter of whether or not you can stop it. And for the first quarter and a half, they certainly stopped it. I don't have the stat right in front of me, but ballpark here, they held Mississippi State to 5 yards in the first quarter. NC State outgained Mississippi State about 120 yards to 5 in the first quarter, and yet Mississippi State was the team with points on the scoreboard. That's a problem. Now, look, that opening kickoff return for a touchdown, I don't know about the listeners. I don't know about you, Matt. Feel free to chime in here. But I feel like there was a universal feeling among Wolfpack alums and fans everywhere that were watching that game. And as soon as he's crossing the 50-yard line, he's gone. You know it's going back for a touchdown. You get that feeling in your gut that's saying, here we go again. And it's just another SEC game NC State goes into as a favorite. And the way it starts, an opening kickoff, it takes me right back to that 2017 game against South Carolina. Different game. NC State was much more competitive in that game. NC State should have won that game in 2017. But kind of similar circumstances in the sense where you're talking about an NC State team with a lot of promise, high hopes, going into a game against a seemingly mediocre SEC opponent. And I do think this Mississippi State team might be comparable to that South Carolina team in the sense where expectations aren't high for them early on in the season, but then they maybe end up going 7-5, 8-4, maybe. Mississippi State was better than I expected, for sure. But it's just, man, something about those SEC teams, they say it all week. We don't care what conference they're from. We'll play anybody. We're not scared of them. But you know what? When they go down to Starkville and there's 50,000 people wearing overalls and, ringing those cowbells, which sound, deafening. I mean, I'm listening to it on the TV and they have to block out the sound when the play happens just so you can kind of know what's going on in the game. I mean, it is annoying as hell. It is annoying. It was a hostile environment for sure. And I think that the veteran players, I don't think all the players were phased, but I think some of them were phased in the moment, especially after that opening kickoff. You could just tell the sideline. The confidence that NC State had in the first quarter against USF, I mean, they could have run through a brick wall. The confidence level they had after that opening kickoff return was, taken back for a touchdown, 7-0 within 13 seconds of the game. I mean, you could just see it in their faces. The only guy I saw that wasn't phased was Tanner Engel because, man, he was delivering some nasty, nasty hits. And that last one, I was like, Tanner, don't be tempting the refs, man. Come on. But anyways, Matt, what do you think about all that? I just kind of unloaded there.
I would say that too about the game specifically. Again, this is not to say what a coulda, shoulda. There's a lot to be concerned about. There's a lot that needs to be corrected. There's a lot to need to be fixed. For NC State coming out of this game, and Sunday they put the game to bed, and there's going to be a lot of conversations and I'm sure a lot of film watching to kind of go over all that. But let me throw a hypothetical out there. You should never give up a kickoff return for a touchdown. So you don't allow that to happen.
Especially when this team takes so much pride in special teams too.
You don't, and to be fair, that's a good kick returner. He had a big one against Louisiana Tech. He's known for playmaking. So, that's just something that you have to watch for. But it shouldn't have happened. If you don't let that happen, if you convert on your goal line situation for a touchdown, if Christopher Dunn makes a field goal, it's probably 10-0 at the end of the first quarter, and this is probably a different game completely. For the next 3 quarters, completely different. And so, I guess my point is Mississippi State was the better team. Deserved to win. I agree with you. I wouldn't. Let's see what happens. I think they're going to be a team that runs hot and cold during the year. They're going to struggle offensively in some games. But they're going to be a team that by the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if they're in a bowl game. Even though they were finished last in the SEC West. I'm glad the announcer said that would probably be a middle-of-the-road SEC East team or a middle-of-the-road ACC, Atlantic, or Coastal team, right?
Yeah, if you make a bowl game in the SEC West, you could probably win the ACC this year.
Well, I still think Clemson will be fine by the end of the year. But, yeah. So, but my point being is that the game changes if NC State took advantage of the opportunities it had. Some of that is full credit to Mississippi State. They came up with some key stops, forced NC State to try 2 long field goals. I think when Mississippi State botched a couple of punts, they did get the interception. They made the read on the rookie post and jump pass. Kudos to them. So they created some of those opportunities and some of those stops. And so that's good on Mississippi State. But if NC State handled their business there and takes advantage of some of their opportunities, there's another deep pass that Devin Leary threw to Devin Carter, I believe, in the first half that Carter couldn't quite get his fingers on. Haul in. That would have been a touchdown. It would have been a 90-yard touchdown to Anthony Smith if the ball was a little bit more on target in the fourth quarter. So there were opportunities there, but particularly in the first quarter for NC State to establish itself and take a lead and probably change how this game is played and how it unfolds. And to me, that was the point of concern, was not taking advantage of those opportunities and allowing Mississippi State to have a lead that it had no business having at the end of the first quarter. And then, to me, the key play, too, was giving up the first down on 4th and 7 at the 39-yard line. That's when the game changed on the other side. That's when Mississippi State took control, scored a touchdown a couple plays later. That was the game changer for me. And so, but, it was a game of missed opportunities. It's concerning that you missed those opportunities. If you're looking for a point of positive outlook, had you take advantage of them and not allowed the kickoff return for a touchdown, we're probably not talking about how much better Mississippi State looked. So,
Yeah, but those are the plays that win and lose ball games, And I know the number one guy that knows that is Dave Dorn. I mean, he is a guy that takes pride in special teams, so that that more than anybody, that touchdown ticked him off more than anybody. And I was seeing on, Twitter, there was some chiming in of maybe a questionable hold call around the 50-yard line, SEC officials.
Yeah, I heard that. Let me say that every kickoff return and every punt return for a touchdown has a hold or a block in the back at some point in there. 9 out of 10 of them do. So, yeah, it probably was. I remember in the South Carolina one you talked about earlier, there was about 3 flags missed on that kickoff return that Deebo Samuel had for a touchdown. But listen, if we're going to be honest, if you go back and look at Bam Knight against Miami or Naheem Hines against Clemson a few years ago, I'm sure you could have found a flag or 2. That's just the nature of kickoff returns. But go ahead.
Matt, what's the latest we know on Peyton Wilson?
I hadn't heard anything. I'll go ahead and tell you this. Don't expect him to play against Furman, because there's no need for him to play against Furman. It wasn't a pretty sight, seeing an ice pack wrapped around the shoulder and the arm and the sling.
Same shoulder, right?
Left shoulder. Well, he's had issues with both of them. I remember when he made the tackle, but that's not a good-looking tackle. That it was interesting that they went with Jalen Scott at that linebacker spot instead of Vi Jones, because Vi Jones normally plays Drake Thomas's, linebacker spot, and then he plays in the dime defense. So, that's certainly something to watch for. That's certainly something to keep an eye on. Obviously they don't need him against Furman, and it's kind of depressing to be playing Furman. I mean, it's a get-right opportunity, but you're not going to learn anything.
And then you get Clemson.
Kind of with that, yeah, and then Clemson. I mean, you kind of wish that they had another shot at a not Clemson, but maybe a Boston College, Wake Forest, Louisville type opponent right now, where maybe we could see if they learned anything from this, if they can make those corrections. And as it is, if you got Furman or who you're going to beat, you got Clemson, it's going to be a tall order. If you struggle to score against Mississippi State, you're going to struggle to score against Clemson. And then you got Louisiana Tech, probably in between Mississippi State and South Florida. So it's going to be a while till we really know what this NC State team's about. And, that's the big picture, I think. It's still going to take a few more weeks. It probably won't be until that BC game where we know what NC State's about this year.
Should I give another reason for concern, or should I give a reason for optimism?
Hey, man, it's your call. Maybe both.
I'm feeling another reason for concern, Matt. Maybe if I didn't bet on State, I would have been a little less pessimistic. But it just, the coffee is more needed this morning. It's fun. I get out to California, and it's almost like you want to embrace, your respect of your alma mater. That's your school. That's your alma mater. I'm proud of NC State. I want them to succeed. When you're in Raleigh and there's so many NC State fans around, you're covering the team, you don't feel like you have to be a fan. You don't feel like you have to defend your Wolfpack. There's plenty of people to do it. In fact, you got to keep a lot of people in check with the red tinted glasses. But out here, there's no Wolfpack fans, so it's just me watching. I'm probably one of a dozen viewers in the San Francisco Bay area market watching NC State, Mississippi State at 4 p.m. Pacific time. But that being said, reason for concern. Remember that awesome running back duo that ran for a collective
300 yards.
Yeah, they ran for a collective 268 yards on 32 attempts against USF. Ricky Person and Bam Knight. And I love both of these running backs. I really do. I think they're both great. And I don't put all this on them. But remember that running back duo that everybody was talking about after week one, after such a great week one performance against a bad team. Now you go play an SEC defense. Let's see what you're about. 50 yards on 16 carries. And of course, an interception by Ricky Person and a fumble by Bam Knight. Both of which in very, very key times. They didn't have a good game. And I don't put it all on them because there really wasn't a lot of opportunity. Mississippi State's run defense was very legit. But this shows you that when NC State's going to play a good defensive team that can stop the run, that has guys up front that can handle your offensive line, this offensive line, it may be better than average in the ACC, but it's certainly, I was seeing some things like this might be one of the best units in the ACC overall. This might be the second best offensive line unit in the ACC. I'm not so maybe, but I'm not so sure. I thought Mississippi State, State won the battle at the line of scrimmage for the first quarter and a half, and then beyond that, it was all Mississippi State. It's like State almost got kind of gassed. It's almost like Mississippi State just had more dudes to throw out there that were just fresher, and they had so many big dudes. I thought Devin Leary was comfortable in the pocket for the most part. The pass protection was actually pretty good, but the run blocking was just it was not there. After it was an A+ against USF, it was probably a C- at best against Mississippi State. And the only reason I give it a C- is because Mississippi State's run defense is very, very good. So you have to grade with a scale there. But when you can't run the football, this offense is completely different than the one we saw in week one.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things NC State's going to have to go back to the drawing board about is this. I think there was I don't know, only the coaches can answer this, but maybe they were just thought of, the team's never going to run left, but we're so good, we're still going to be able to run left. And then perhaps that was overestimated a little bit. So it felt like, full disclosure, I was we were watching the game from TV, so we heard the announcers too, and they were talking a little bit about the predictability of NC State, particularly in the run game. If average viewers and TV announcers are seeing it, certainly Mississippi State's defensive coaches are seeing it. So, it might be, do we have to rethink a little bit how we approach the running game? Do we have to mix it up a little bit more, trying to find some other ways to keep defenses off balance so that when we need to go to our bread and butter of running to the left behind the Quan Yu and Zavala, we can do that. And we can still do that more times than not, but we got to do a little bit more to make it unpredictable and keep defenses honest when defending the run. So there's something for that. The Knight fumble was a really difficult pill to swallow. The person interception, you're asking him to do something that he doesn't do. And, I felt like that was a little bit of a questionable play call on 3rd and goal. I wouldn't have minded maybe on 2nd and goal when they got down to the 3-yard line or 2-yard line. But honestly, that 2nd and goal play was about wide receivers not making the blocks out on the perimeter. Go look at it. The numbers show that it should have been a good matchup for State out there. They just didn't make the block. But I don't put too much on Ricky there. That was
No.
tough.
Yeah,
But the Knight fumble was a costly one. You got to take better care of that football there. And you're driving across midfield, opening possession of the second half. That's an opportunity. You got to break. You got a huge lucky break when Devin Leary got hit as he threw, and Devin Carter came up with a huge catch, 1-on-4, out-jumped the Mississippi State defenders to get the ball to midfield, or near midfield or whatever, and then you had a nice run going to the left, ironically, and then you fumbled the ball. That was a big play. To me, maybe the 3 biggest plays were the person interception, the 4th and 7 conversion by Mississippi State, and then the Bam Knight fumble was huge. But I still think these running backs can be really good. I think there were games last year where the guys at UNC that are boasting the pros got shut down, I think, by Notre Dame or something like that. So, it happens every now and then. You give credit to Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State got to be honest a little bit about its planning with the run game and maybe make some adjustments, but they're still weapons. They still can be really good for you against most defenses. We'll see what they learned after this game. That's going to be the key thing. What did they learn going forward in terms of preparation and approach and things? And again, some of it is on players too for executing and not executing. We don't know. They may have been, when they go back and look at film and say, you didn't whiff on this block, we would have had about a 15-yard run here or something to that effect. So we'll see what comes out of it. I go back to what I said earlier. I kind of wish there was an opponent other than Furman this week to see if we can honestly know what they learned coming out of this game.
Well, there's not. And I want to be very clear in the sense that, reason for concern, I'm not concerned that the running backs won't be good this year. I think they are both quality backs. I think this offensive line is still a solid unit. Like I said, I still think it's an above-average unit in the ACC. Getting to conference competition, I think they're going to be okay. That Clemson game is concerning. Very, very concerning against that offensive line. But I think every team in the ACC could say that they're concerned about their offensive line going up against that Clemson defensive front. They'll bounce back, but I just think we need to pump the brakes in the sense that, Bam Knight and Ricky aren't going to combine for at least 200 yards every game. That's just not. NC State's run attack has promise, but we have to remind ourselves that this is a run attack that finished, I think, 12th in the ACC last year in running yards per game. It was a below average run offense in the ACC last year. And if it increases to an above average run offense in the ACC this year, that is improvement. And I still think it can be. But it doesn't automatically go to the best run offense in the ACC. It just doesn't happen overnight in one off season. Do you have another point? I've got one more reason for optimism.
Yeah, you take it, then we'll do our game balls.
Okay, let's do it. Reason for optimism. It just seems that Devin Leary and those receivers are very close to clicking. They're very and once they click, I feel like Leary's still getting some of that rust off of him. It was great that he was able to have a full off season and go full contact and spring and throughout the summer. But when he's practicing, especially coming off of a broken leg, nobody's touching Devin Leary in practice. And for the most part, USF didn't really touch him because USF just didn't have that type of pass rush. But Mississippi State did have the type of guys that could get into the backfield. Mississippi State did get 4 sacks on the night. I know a couple of them there late. I think, again, some of that offensive line just looked fatigued there in the fourth quarter. But Devin Leary, I thought...
They're teeing off, too, because they know what's coming, so
yeah,
the defense can tee off.
But what I was saying about Leary, I think I gave him a B- grade against USF. I think I'd give him another B- for this game. And with promise that, I see some B+, A- games on the horizon. You mentioned a couple of the missed opportunities. Anthony Smith wide open on a play that could have been a touchdown if Leary throws it a little bit better. Devin Carter had a ball slip through his hands on a play that would have been a 90-yard touchdown. Those two plays connect, and we're talking about a historical performance for Leary. I mean, those two plays connect. We're looking at a 450-plus game where he throws 2 touchdowns. And, he threw 1 interception, but it was, a late second heave. I'm not counting that personally. Fact of the matter is, he threw for 300 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. I know that 1 touchdown and a lot of those yards, came in garbage time in the fourth quarter, but for the most part, he completed, above 65% of his passes. He didn't turn the ball over. I thought he made some really smart plays in the pocket when he was under fire. He extended a few plays that I thought looked really impressive from him. Shows that he's plenty confident after that injury. He's not afraid to get out of the pocket and run a little bit. He's not going to go break off a 30-yard run for a touchdown or anything like that, but he can extend a play and get you 7 yards on a 2nd and 9 situation. So I think there's still reason for optimism with Devin Leary. I thought he stepped up in the moment. I thought it was just another case of, he came out a little bit rusty. I think maybe he wishes he had that first quarter back. Maybe, a few of those throws he wishes he could take back. But once he got settled into the game, I thought he looked really, really solid. And he's got a deep ball threat, which does make it adds an element to this offense that, NC State simply didn't have in the last 7 games of the year last year with Bailey Hockman. So I do think there's still reason for optimism on offense. I'm concerned. Don't get me wrong. They, scored 10 points against Mississippi State, a team that you probably should score more than 10 points against. But, I'm not saying, oh no, SOS, high alert, this offense isn't going anywhere. I still think there's promise. So I don't know if you have anything else to
every
offer.
game, even great NC State offenses have had off games. And nobody's proclaiming this a great NC State offense yet. It could be a very good offense, I think. The potential there, but even very good offenses have bad games. To your point with Devin Leary, I kind of wonder if they maybe could have been a little more aggressive with Devin Leary. I actually thought he did what they asked in the first quarter. They moved the ball because they were throwing those short passes and getting 5-7 yards at a time, and they were high percentage passes. It looked like Mississippi State was playing off a little bit. So I'm not sure that Devin Leary missed much. I think he kind of did what they asked. I think the question I have with Leary in that game was, should they have opened it up? They've been a little more aggressive with some maybe downfield passes. I'm sure Mississippi State was playing some kind of prevent late in the game, but some of those throws to Porter Rooks down the field, maybe a little bit more aggressive to kind of loosen up the defense. That's kind of the one question I have. It's, could they have taken it more downfield there when the offense started to stall out, really in the third quarter too. It was really stalling out there in the third quarter. I think they had 3 straight 3-and-outs after getting down 21-3. But again, that's where we'll see what they learned and See if they adjust anything or how they approach and handle it. They're in practice, so they know a lot more than we do, and they see a lot more than we do. So we'll see what they think they can and can't do in the next few weeks.
Still sticking with 8-4, right?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, I felt better about 8-4 last night than I did because I see Florida State didn't look as good.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Boston College. We'll see what happens with the quarterback. You don't wish that on any team, obviously, but if Phil Djokovic is gone for an extended period of time, that's a big blow for Boston College. Syracuse are kind of like good defense, but that game's at home, and so I actually feel even better about 8-4, 5-3 too in the ACC.
I regret going 9-3. Before we had our season kickoff podcast to preview the USF game, the excitement of the moment took over. I said, you know what? I thought NC State was going to sweep the non-conference slate and go 5-3 in ACC play, so I changed my pick. I was 8-4 as well, right there with you, and then went to 9-3 just because, looking at the schedule, I thought it was going to be an above 500 team in conference play, and I thought State would just simply win this game. So now that 9-3 pick, I'm in the 8-4 camp now because I don't think they're going to go 6-2 in the ACC now. I mean, nothing that I saw last night. It's like, oh, my confidence level is higher in NC State in the ACC now. But I still think it's a good team. Still going to be a good year. You don't have to throw everything out because you lost by 2 touchdowns on the road to an SEC team. Because look, I mean, a lot of those guys, that was the first time they had been in a hostile environment like that, and
fair point.
Better part of 2 years. Because, you got to remember 2019 was kind of a lost season too, so there wasn't really a lot of high-stakes games. I mean, really, probably the last time they went to like a hostile environment with big stakes in a non-conference game was maybe that West Virginia game that year.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
A completely different roster now. So, it happens. It's an experienced team, but there's also a lot of young talent that hasn't been in those situations yet. They've got to learn. So let's give our game balls. You go ahead and go first, Matt.
Game balls. That's it. I'm gonna give it to Tanner Engel. Yeah, he broke up a couple passes, finished with 11 tackles. He was aggressive all over the field, played to the final whistle.
He sure did.
Had some good, clean hits, I thought. I'm glad they didn't review that one hit in the end zone. That was a clean hit. Unfortunate. I had to see the receiver get hurt. But that's the risks you take in football over the middle, right? You're going to take those risks. And when the quarterback, then it is Tanner Engel. The quarterback threw him and left him vulnerable in that spot. And I thought it was a clean hit from Tanner Engel, and he did what he's supposed to do. You can't assume that ball's incomplete. You got to assume the receiver's coming down with the football and got to try to dislodge it. So I thought Engel was very aggressive. A couple pass breakups, 11 tackles to lead the team. So I'll give it to Tanner Engel.
Well, good pick. That would have been mine if you picked somebody else. But you sure? I mean, there's something about... Okay, I do want to address that last hit that Tanner Engel made because I also agree it was a clean hit. I'm glad they didn't review it. But when it's Tanner Engel that makes that hit, and his history, you're just like, Tanner, what? This game's done, man. You gotta be thinking about, I mean, I know the team probably doesn't need him against Furman, but don't tempt the officials. Come on, man. Good hit, but maybe a little unnecessary, in my opinion. Just my opinion. Tanner's a different dude, man. And he's the dude that you want on your sideline, not the other one. So yeah. I'm glad he's wearing red. That's for sure. But he did play a hell of a game. And can we just get Tanner Engel and Peyton Wilson healthy for like multiple weeks in a row? I mean, come on. This defense is so good with those two guys on the field, and really hope both of those guys stay healthy this year because the defense has the makings to be really special. I'm going to give my game ball. It's tough. I'm torn between Devin Leary and Emeka Emezi. I'll give him a combo because I thought they were both standouts in the past game. Again, I gave Devin Leary a B- grade, but frankly, that's enough to get a game ball on the offensive side of the ball Saturday night, simply because there weren't a lot of A performances, unfortunately. Leary did what he had to do. Like you said, Leary did what he was asked to do. I agree with you in the sense that I don't think it was that NC State wasn't aggressive. It's that they weren't aggressive early enough. Those deep balls that he threw were starting to come in desperation times when that Mississippi State lead was about 2 possessions at least. Maybe throw one of those out in that first drive. Just test that secondary a little bit early, because clearly there's some great chemistry between Emeka Emezi and Devin Leary. Emeka Emezi, 6 receptions, 92 yards, led all receivers in this game in receiving yards. Didn't get in the end zone, but again, caught 6 of his 8 targets and averaged 15.3 yards per catch. He looked great. There's that great sideline catch that got NC State in the red zone there. Was it the first quarter, Matt? He did a great job of keeping one foot in bounds, and it was
that was first quarter.
And then they were about to replay it, but then NC State was going so fast that they couldn't replay it in time. But it was a beautiful catch. I thought he looked great. Devin Carter had the opportunity to have a really special game, but it was just that's where the chemistry. I think they're just a couple weeks off, and when Leary and all these receivers are connecting, that passing game could take it up to a different level. But yep, Leary and Emezi get my game ball, and that's going to do it for this podcast. We don't have to dwell on this one too much. On to Furman. And Matt, the Panthers better not lose to the New York Jets this afternoon. I got to get some redemption out of this weekend, man.
Sam Darnold got to get some redemption too, right?
Sam Darnold revenge game, baby. Let's go Panthers. Come on, we're all in. All right, that's going to do it. Listeners, viewers at home, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast wherever you listen to us. Apple, Spotify, Google Play, everywhere you listen to podcasts. Plus, you can always watch us on our YouTube channel, where you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give this video a thumbs up while you're at it. Helps us out. You can follow us on social media. Follow us at our main account on Twitter at The Wolfpacker. You can follow me personally on Twitter at Justin H. Will. Give us a like on Facebook, NC State Wolfpack, at thewolfpacker.com. And last reminder, please use promo code PACK60 for a free 60-day trial at thewolfpacker.com. Unlocks all of our premium content, news, and analysis over there. So for Matt Carter, this is Justin Williams, and this has been the Wolfpacker Podcast.